Welcome to the Gnostic Rebellion. Today we're speaking with Dr. Joshua Pritikin, author of a wonderfully interesting book that deals with a core theme here at the Gnostic Rebellion and the Gnostic book that deals with I'm sorry, and the Gnostic Church of Light. Religion Unburdened by Belief is the name of the book. We'll introduce him in a moment, but you'll find immediately below this video, in the description, you'll find a link for our donation button at uh, PayPal, and this program supports the Gnostic Church of Light. It's an historic building, and we invite you to become part of our historic congregation. We're the first fully owned and operating Gnostic church on the continents of the Americas, and your donations are tax deductible. While you do that, we'll extend this blessing. May wisdom and divine providence increase the unique genius of our congregation and bring us to health, wealth, and increase of days. Okay. Having earned his PhD in psychometrics in quantitative psychology from the University of Virginia, Dr. Joshua Pritikin, during his academic career, contributed to 10 peer reviewed publications and now maintains a practice in White City, Oregon. He runs Estrella Counseling and holds a level 3 certification with the IFS Institute, which perhaps we'll talk about a little bit later. But it is his book, Religion Unburdened by Belief, that brings us here today. We don't even have to do it.
Okay.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Gnostic Rebellion. We're now in part 5 of talking with Dr. Joshua Pritikin on his marvelous, marvelous book, and Religion Unburdened by Belief. And I'm going to apologize because I think in our first set of programs, I did too much talking, and I'm going to try to pull back and let Joshua tell the story of his work. I wrote a little note. We're dealing with chapter 5 here. And my note was, you are the protagonist of your own life. You are the person who is central in your being. And I took this paraphrase from the chapter. Consciousness and its embodiment provide an inescapable perspective. So, Joshua, I'd love it if you would just comment on that and what you might be saying there.
Okay. Well, let me just define consciousness or remind listeners what it is. The example I like to cite is anesthetic. So when you're put under with general anesthesia, then you're no longer conscious. You're not there anymore. So that's kind of how we know what consciousness is by its absence. So when it's not absent, then you're the protagonist of your life. And actually, this is a really good. I mean, I don't know. This is kind of off topic, but it occurred to me that this is a good way of arguing that artificial intelligence will never be conscious because ketamine is an anesthetic, and you can administer ketamine to people to make them unconscious, but you can also administer like a low dose of ketamine, and that is can be used as like a therapeutic treatment because it reduces the feeling of depression reliably over the next week. Now, there's no parallel for that for computers. Like either computers are either on or off. Like off could be like the analogy for like a anesthetized computer.
I was just thinking, yeah.
But like there's no like it doesn't make sense to have like low dose electricity. Like computers just don't work that way.
I like it. Keep going.
Yeah, so that was that's like a way of or an analogy. You can see the analogy breaks down why computers are not conscious.
Well, now you're dividing between um, artificial forms of consciousness. I guess we got to say pun intended, um, and biological consciousness, even whether we talk plant or animal. We know that biology, and we talked about this last week in the other part that we did. Um, the consciousness uh, in compared to a computer is something a computer cannot index. We're not going to have the singularity. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and we had talked about Roger Penrose in that regard, and this is just another way of looking at it that may be persuasive to some people if Roger Penrose doesn't resonate.
well, I think we went out of our way last time to state well enough that anything metaphysical is unprovable. So you can go one way and be quite intelligently rational in your thinking, and I could go another way and be just as rational, and yet we can arrive at two different places. Just as far as like, I can tell you that we've got to follow the Pythagorean form of mathematics, and you don't get to anything of divinity until you get to the number 10, which is the sacred number, and blah 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 blah. And you could turn around and tell me that Pythagoras is really generally a waste of time. We just know better, uh, about how the brain works and blah blah blah. And I'm not so sure that either, it has reached into the realm of fact. Even if we go to, uh, brain science, it's still in its current path of development. And, 100 years from now, we could be laughing at what we know today. And in
Okay,
the
yeah,
same,
yeah,
and I can cite Schopenhauer and Nietzsche till you're blue in the face, and can't prove a word of it either. But some of it may resonate.
yeah.
I mean, obviously your book does for me, or I wouldn't have reached out to you really because, I think it's just such a marvelous book. Um, when you got to Penrose, we came on the next note that I actually wrote was body and awareness are mutually interdependent.
Hey, yeah. Um, so if we let me see. I don't know which one I want to start with. So if we don't have a body, then of course we don't have awareness. So we definitely need a body. Um, and
So awareness has to be embodied, is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, as far as I know,
Okay.
yeah. And so awareness or consciousness has to be embodied. But then if we like to know, but I don't, so the wait, so the strange loop. Okay, I'm getting all tied up in knots here. I can't remember. The argument is not that complicated. Can you remind me how it goes?
Well,
I'm
I
just
was
looking at them.
thinking about Penrose, and I was thinking about the uh what do you call it, on the ends of the neurons, the
Okay,
that connect our bodies,
microtubules or something.
microtubule. They connect our bodies to our mind, and this is how the theory goes. Now, you may actually have a better understanding of that theory than I do because it seemed that you corrected me a little bit on that. I don't know. That's just what I sort of remember. Um, but we go to the Cartesian split, right? Body and mind.
Yeah.
I doubt my body. I can doubt the world. I can doubt all my perceptions, but I can't doubt that I am the one doubting. So, I think, therefore I am. which is, I understand, might be a little bit of a mistranslation. But anyway, so we know in a moment that, as soon as I tell my hand to move, my hand moves, right? It is no delayed response. The mind doesn't have to filter in, get, find the right combination of microtubules, go, you know, um, it happens so instantly that it is hard for us to even perceive a separation between mind and body, you know. I mean, so there's a perfect example of, a metaphysics that can't be proven, really.
Okay, so I'm trying to keep trying. So you're saying that uh, some people have tried to create this split between mind and body, subjective and objective, because the objective is easier to study than subjective experience, maybe. That's often why scientists are preferring to do that. Um,
Well,
that
there's
when,
assumptions there that's always been there in science, right?
mhm.
I perceive, a green tree, and the assumption is that the tree's actually green. The assumption is the tree's really there. The assumption is, so many other things that then objectify the tree. So now some philosophers are going to say, well, then you can't really know the tree in itself, where other philosophers will be fully convinced that you can know the tree in itself.
Yeah. But to even have these experiences, you have to be aware, you have to be conscious. So consciousness comes first. But then I guess it's confusing because we need a body uh, to be conscious. Like that's apparent. Like uh, if you kill someone, then they're probably not conscious anymore. We don't have any evidence they're conscious. So, so yeah, so consciousness depends on a body, but then you can't even know that unless you're conscious. So, um, yeah, it's a strange loop. It's like the two things are
Well,
mutually dependent.
I could come in and disagree only to the point where I can say consciousness is not necessarily dependent on a body. Um,
Okay.
there is such things as disembodied consciousness that can happen in a couple of ways, at least anecdotally. So I can tell you some stories, okay? Uh, but I think before we worry about any of that, we do know that there's an interdependency that happens before we even get to the theoretical. Like, because we know from being in our own bodies. We understand ourselves as beings. So, that's why I kind of chuckled a little bit earlier, but I said, no, go on, because um, you're not wrong.
Yeah, no, I like, and you're not wrong either. Like so like that's what I cover in chapter 4 is um, instance like recalled experiences of death. Like, how do you explain that? Um, if consciousness is dependent on a body, but the body's dead, so that's a mystery. Like, we don't really know because from our everyday experience, it really seems like consciousness depends on a body, and a body, like even noticing that, depends on consciousness. So um, yeah, it's maybe in 100 years we'll have this better sorted out, like you were saying.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll never have it sorted out. Maybe
Yeah.
metaphysics will be metaphysical. Um, eh, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on the future in that regard. Uh, but that we have consciousness, that we find ourselves embodied in consciousness. I think that's the whole uh, Heideggerian kind of sense, being in time. Uh, we we have to start from where we are now. And what goes to the meat of your book, actually, Religion Unburdened from Belief, is that uh, if we start judging our experiences when we do have any kind of interesting or unusual experiences, when we start judging them in terms of religious belief, we can really not see what's actually happening. How many people do I meet in different metaphysical communities, and they'll come to me and go, I've really, I got this really sharp pain in my lower stomach, and I'm just wondering, is there a spell to get rid of that pain? And I said, yeah, the spell is a series of 10 numbers. Do you happen to know your doctor's phone number? Um, so, they're looking at the apple and they're seeing the girl getting tricked by the wicked witch, right? Who's the prettiest girl in all the land. They're seeing Eve eating it. They're not seeing, a red round shape. You know what I'm saying? They're seeing the juice that it may provide. They're seeing how it might look on their salad, but they're not seeing the apple.
Well, okay. I mean, I can see where you're coming from here. Like um, and that's what I say in chapter 4 is that all this spirit world stuff, like, um, it's like we have these experiences, and we're called experiences of death or possession experiences, but do we have any control over them, or are we just subject to having these experiences? And like I feel like when you say that you should just call your doctor, to me that feels a little dismissive because doctors can't explain everything either, and people do have lower back pain. Sometimes it's not explainable, so
Yeah, I was
we
talking
have
stomach.
to yeah, or stomach, yeah, and so we
Different
have
from
to
back
allow
pain.
for. Sorry.
Different from back pain because we can find out what's hurting your stomach. We can't find out necessarily what's hurting your back.
Okay.
So, but
Whatever example you like, but go ahead.
you talk of the epoche, Husserl's epoche, and that's removing the things that we put on what we perceive. Right? He wants to remove all, he wants to remove Eve. He wants to remove, the wicked witch. He wants to remove, the salad or the juice that could be made from the apple or the money you could make on selling it. He wants you to see the apple as it is. Okay,
Right,
so
right.
he
So it's an attempt to study subjective experience in a like minimizing expectations,
most of
minimizing
the
beliefs.
most, if not all, of the subjectivity to see
Yeah,
the object as it is in itself. Okay, and Husserl, of course, brings on Heidegger's design, and Heidegger takes that a step further. But you must suspend the meaning that you put into objects, is really what the epoche is, right?
mm,
So we can put that, how much meaning do we put into death, especially in terms of religion? I mean, it's everything.
yeah, yeah. Like death is many many religions address like what happens when you die. They try to give some explanation.
Yeah. So should
Yeah.
we all be, as the Klingons would say, should we all be in Stobelcore? Um, the I don't think you got that reference.
No.
The Klingons on Star Trek, when they die, they go to Stobelcore, the
Oh,
heroes.
okay. Okay.
Okay. So when we take that off, we start by looking at death really quite simply. Um, we observe that that body that was moving now was moving is no longer moving,
Yeah.
and will not move again. As a matter of fact, it now starts to break down because it refuses to take care of itself.
Yeah.
We go out we eat and exercise and breathe. A dead body doesn't do it. We've gotten to the point where we gave reverence to, our lost spirits, and even some Aboriginal tribes, if the dead spirit was revered for one reason or another, it was eaten. Um, and so, a quite different overlay of death, put on that kind of a tribe. But and so the epoche got to bring us back to something more basic, what death actually is. But the problem is we then came up with this religious idea of a soul in a body, right? And so now that soul could go to Snowball or somewhere else.
Mm.
And and that also distorts the death process, because death is something that we as a culture don't really see it for what it is. And we're so busy putting these hyperbolic religious connotations over it, or religious fears and longings over it, that
Hmm.
can't see it for what it is. We don't take the time. And, it's been one of my main contemplations for a long time now. And, I don't expect to figure it out. But as I ruminate on this, and my own demise and how I feel about that and what that is to me, um, I think there's something so much more interesting going on as I, apply my own applique to it. You know, um, I hear some stories. I still have, obviously, I'm not going to get rid of a certain emotional bend. And I'm going to listen to my body to some degree. My body has all these mitochondria that know what I'm thinking. And, they're the aggregate of my thought. And they don't want to die, because guess what happens when I die? I'm going to either burn my body or bury. I'm going to burn it, but or bury it in the mitochondria are going to break down. They're no longer going to get a chance to live,
Hmm.
you know, and they don't want to die.
So PJ, would you say that the like the expectations or beliefs about the fear, beliefs about death, like the how elaborate they are, how detailed they are, isn't that like a reflection of how anxious you are about death or anxious people are? Or
Oh, I don't deny that. I mean, I'm certainly anxious about that. I don't want to die. You know what I'm saying? I'd like
yeah,
to go back to 30 and forgive me, give me some real quality time, because if I knew then what I know now, blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
Um, I think there's a natural anxiety in dying. Anyone that pretends that there isn't is a bullshit artist, and they're trying to con both us and them, or they're just trying to convince themselves. It's a belief.
But don't you think they're like different people have different degrees of fear in about death?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, some are more studied at it and feel more comfortable with it than others.
yeah.
Um, Some can really not give a shit at all because they're such angry cretins, right? Um, I've seen all kinds of approaches to death. Some are so afraid of it they can't even think about it. If there's a death in your family, they don't even want to talk to you for the next 6 months until it's a past tense situation. So, um, but we do get back to the embodiment of consciousness, and we still get back to the whole difference between the singularity and computers and consciousness. But um, do we have do we actually have a mind? I would argue that we only start with a very basic mind. That aggregate of mitochondria that develop the shape and details of your body, that put the lungs where the lungs are, the heart where the heart is, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
Um, and we um, I lost my train of thought again. Um,
Well, like, okay, so, but what you say, we start with a rudimentary mind,
yeah,
but I, like, I'm not even sure I know what a mind is. Like I know that like probably neuroscientists have a better idea than me. My book doesn't touch much on neuroscience because I'm not an expert in that area. Yeah, I'm more on the psychology level, but
yeah,
yeah,
but
from a
neuroscience
psych
would be a great compliment, I suspect. I suspect anything that you would come up in diagramming the psyche, you could then go in and find some deeper constructs in neuroscience.
yeah, maybe, yeah,
I would really suspect that. And in, in the neuroscience, in the basic soul that we're born with, well, we are born with something. It's obvious. Within seconds of birth, you're slapped and forced to breathe,
yeah,
and you can respond to that very virulently, right? Um, you immediately begin to understand that you're warm, cold, hungry, wet, what have you. And so you
yeah,
already get basic perceptions. You don't have the ability to articulate them yet.
yeah. But like, there's no doubt that infants are conscious, at least
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah. So we display consciousness immediately, and
Yeah,
immediately we seem to naturally want to continue to develop that consciousness. We seek to communicate with the world first, to get fed, to be warm, and we're finding it through very rudimentary means, laughter and crying, but we get there, right?
yeah,
Um, Even as children, we can have trouble understanding complex emotions because we don't have the intellectual ability yet to explain certain things, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, for
child
sure. Yeah.
in a unique manner. Um, Now, most people don't pass that point. Most
What,
people
which point?
they graduate high school with their sixth grade education. And like we talked last time, they can read street
Hmm.
signs, words on a can, and enough to do the paperwork on the job. Um, but they haven't gone into the humanities in any way, shape, or form. And they haven't done anything creative to build a soul. And I insist that that's what you need to do, or you're a zombie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Invite.
so okay, so we're sitting here smiling about that, but what are listeners to make of our conversation? Like, I'm not sure that everybody is tracking what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, but that's something people always ask me in different situations. Um, should we make this accessible, or should we make this intelligent? Because oftentimes accessibility has very little to do with intelligence. Some people are clever enough, but who's Cyril for kindergartners? You know what I'm saying? Come on.
Well, okay, uh, that reminds me, like that's one of the reasons why, uh, like the whole book is built on mm, internal family systems, a psychological model that was developed to help people with severe mental illness, for people who are really struggling. So, so the idea is like that this book meets readers where they're at, even if they don't know where they're at, even if they have they have endured severe trauma. They may not even realize what we're talking about. But this book, uh, is caters to the full range of individuals, or it aspires to.
Yeah, I think your book addresses all sorts of issues, but it's intelligently written. So you've already ruled out part of your potential reading audience.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Okay.
genre, group. I mean, come on, there's honestly people in this world coming out of our educational system today, and I'd say, dare say, at least 90%, if not much more, that really haven't ever read a book. Not
Yeah.
one. Not even the driver's manual.
Okay, but like the at least the practices could be explained to these people and they could possibly implement them.
Yeah, good therapists should obviously be able to work with all sorts of, intellectual uh, levels.
Yeah.
And because it's really about the emotions and it's just figuring a way to get that appeal. And we need just enough of both for that to work. Um, but my point was really about how do you make the soul strong? And to make the soul strong, we as we as the church, or as I as a metaphysician, we put some meaning on it. We built some other metaphysical ideas on top of that, because that is so. We go into some kind of inductive reason. Okay, this would be not uh, um, not religion unburdened by belief, but post the unburdening. Okay,
Okay, sure. Yeah, yeah.
we can build
Into
doctrine rational and reasonable, and still be metaphysical. You know, and the question would be, then how do I make a community church appeal to a community, to create a community in that Gnostic church? And all we do is simply say we fortify the genius in each other. And we leave it to that. And either that's going to put somebody off. They're going to say, oh, that's too much for me. I don't want the competition. Or they say, wow, what a great place to be in, because I'll get better, I'll help other people get better. And isn't this about, you know, being and the
Mhm.
being that we take on in this life?
Okay. Yeah. And uh so you said to get better, to help other people get better, and the I guess like you probably have like a specific idea about what that means. Like to me, that just I would just bring that back to unblending again, like we talked about it last week. That um, you need to unblend to be available for transformation, and so it's all about unblending.
Well, so unblending here is peeling apart the layer.
Yeah,
Extracting out where, first we'll pull the sugar out, and then we'll pull the whiskey out, and then we'll pull the soda out. you know, um, taking something apart and putting it back together again. The alchemical formula, solve a
yeah.
coagulum, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that is the key to transformation, right? Whether I don't even know if you still use these ideas, as what do you call it? Projection, and going through that part of the psychotherapeutic experience. But obviously, the projection that the patient puts on the therapist leads to a certain breakdown, because the
Yeah, it can.
patient's
Yeah,
and patient surrendering a wall, right? Unless they just take the projection and they leave the therapy, which I imagine happens often enough. Um, but so if I abandon myself by projecting onto you all these motives that are playing in my head.
okay, well,
um,
let's give an example of projection just to make sure everyone's following. So, suppose um, what do I dislike about myself? Um, like being late. Okay, that's a good one. Um, so uh, so I am. always on time. Like I never miss a meeting. And
He
if
was
I was if if I was projecting, then I would project that like suppose you were late to today's meeting, um, then uh, if I was projecting, then I would resent you for being late. Like that's how projection works. So like something like I'm very uptight about being on time, so I'm expecting you to be uptight about being on time
you're
too. That's
projecting it, huh?
projection.
Yes. But I guess where I was going with that was more or less complete projection, where the patient is now put the whole of their psyche onto the therapist, which is really a loss of self. Um, and
So, whoa, hold on, slow down. So when you say the your whole of the psyche on the therapist, like, so that you're asking, so if you're the client, then you'd be asking me, the therapist, to like interpret your dreams, interpret, like basically explain the meaning. Everything you tell me, I'm going to be like re-explaining the meaning of it back to you. Is that what you mean?
no, like in the example you gave, that was something I think people do all the time everywhere. In other words, I come in 2 minutes late to work, and the manager, or I just happen to have a co-employee who thinks he's a manager, and
Okay.
and he's already dismayed with me for being 2 minutes late. I mean, he
Y-
was a half hour early.
Yeah.
So that's something people do all the time. I think the projection that, at least in stuff that I've read, and I can't. I've read things on psychotherapy so long ago that I may have even misremembered much. But the patient gets to a point where there's complete trust in the therapist, and they're really laying the whole of themselves onto the therapist. And this would be more than just something as mundane as being late, but the traumas and the power figures or whatever in themselves or in their lives are
Hmm.
now, like the parents, especially the moms and dads, are being projected onto the therapist, so that now he can crawl on the rug and say, "Mom, you didn't let me suck your nipple."
Okay.
You know,
So like yeah, so like uh, a client becoming completely dependent on their therapist to do to to understand themselves or do anything. That's what you're getting at.
well, the therapist now gets the opportunity to bring each piece back to the patient in a proper form. First, they have, of course, the gestalt, or the what do you call it? The experience, uh, the cathartic experience the patient
Okay.
then had this projection, right? And theoretically, at least under some of the old ways, the patient, once they had that cathartic experience, they were able really to get the things put back in line. They were just working, the one or two dysfunctional valves that needed to be pushed back in,
Okay.
and that's
Okay.
the old psychotherapy kind of thing. Uh, you take all those memories and whatever, and that were being repressed, that lead to neuroses. Um, Flip side of that, the magician it really practices a controlled schizophrenia. And you were writing something about schizophrenia. I think I have it in some of my notes here. Um, and I couldn't help but note, um, in a controlled schizophrenic experience, I'm pulling out that part of me, that motive that I wish to explore, right? My belief in my personal religion, that I am the most important person in my life. In that personal religion, my belief is I'm a really good guy. Okay, so now I've got this little sadistic whatever streak that keeps popping into my thoughts, and I start repressing it because that's not me. I'm a really good guy,
Oh,
right?
okay. Okay.
So I don't know that I'm also an asshole. I haven't figured that out yet. So because of the belief that I'm a really good guy, I can't find it. I hold up that wall of cognitive dissonance, and I cannot
Okay.
see.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me just check if I'm getting this right. So what you're saying is that like as part of your self-image, you believe you're a good guy, and then you exile like the asshole parts of yourself, and you say I'm not those parts, and then it's you're basically creating you're like splitting yourself into a good part or good parts and bad parts. Is that what you're getting at?
Not that I'm splitting myself into good parts and bad parts consciously, but
Yeah,
obviously that
yeah.
has to be on, right? If I'm going to come to you with the belief that, or I'm not going to come to you, I'm not going to come to anybody with the belief that I'm a really good guy and I can't see the dark side. I'm really just extrapolating for this example, the white lighters in the metaphysical community. They do nothing but bring light to people, and they prove you have the universe's light. And, oh, do you need some of my light? I will give it to you. And they do not know that, they're barking at their dogs, kicking it down the stairs. They don't see it, because they're
Yeah.
so busy having a religion of where they're perfectly nice people because they have seen the light.
Okay, yeah. But mm, I mean, yeah, the I get what you're saying. Like there are people that are able to sustain that kind of lifestyle where they pretend that they don't have bad parts or asshole parts, whatever it may be. Um, but that's not really sustainable in the long run. So, like like I don't think it's really necessary to call those people out because their strategy will work for a while and then it won't, and then they'll look for help. I mean, isn't
They
that how
will,
it
or
works?
they'll just collapse into whatever bullshit they're going to collapse into. Yes,
Yeah, I mean it's
you
you
can't
just have
tell
to
them.
kind of wait for the
Yeah, you can't tell them
calamity to yeah you can't really uh wake them up like until they're ready.
exactly. They're not worth your time. That's why we don't write for people with Down syndrome. That's somebody else's interest, and they do it in an entirely different approach. They're not going to give you Karl Marx for dummies. um, good pun. Um, so uh, we have these modes of consciousness. And I think I told you, in an email that I recommended this book on chemical states that I believe you looked through.
Oh yeah, yeah, I looked at that.
Chemistry of Conscious States, Alan Hobson. I got it up here in my little reading pile.
Okay.
Um, because I think I can understand it better today. Um, so these chemical states get involved in our dreaming. Our dreams reveal hidden parts of the psyche potentially. Sometimes they're just filing away the bullshit of the day. Sometimes they're a little deeper, and they get to the unconscious or to that which we might call metaphysical. And that's where somebody like Carl Jung opens up things. And um, do you want to take it that far? Are you going to kind of stop at Freud's line, so to speak? Um, at least that's the way it seems to be. Um, but what are your thoughts on these? I believe this was your phrase too, fuzzy bound.
Okay, well, like you start talking about dreams, and I just want to wrap that up. I'm going to comment on that. Um, like I know that people have tried to do things with dreams, and like uh, there's like a method where you can be like, I forget what it's called, like semi-conscious or more conscious during your dreams.
Lucid
Um,
dream.
yeah, lucid dreaming, right? Now I haven't written about that. I haven't experimented with that much. My sense is that um, dreams are not very predictable or reliable, so I just don't know uh, what to say about them. That's like hopefully someone else can figure it out, because
Well,
that's
let me ask you this: in your approach to therapy and any particular patient, um, do you ever involve them with the old idea of loose thinking on the couch, where they just start saying something and you get them to take one phrase and let them think of another phrase and let them think of another phrase.
oh, I see, like free association.
Free association. I couldn't think of the phrase.
Yeah.
Uh, so do you have patients get involved at sometimes like that?
Um, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, yeah, occasionally, like, if we don't have a direction, then I would ask them, maybe you could pause, close your eyes, check inside, see if you sense some emotion or part of yourself that needs our attention. Is that kind of what you're getting at, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like brainstorming with the self.
Hmm.
Right? It takes a long, road, or maybe not too long a road to go from a fire engine red Corvette to mommy's ruby red lips. You know what I'm saying? And and we, if the free association goes that way rather than Daisy's red lips, we know that we're dealing with certain issues or we're moving in a certain direction, right? And so the patient begins to
Well,
diagnose.
hold on. That sounds more like kind of like a reading tea leaves. Like I'm not very confident about doing that. Like if uh, if I have some guesses about what some association means, then I would just ask the client, is that, whose lips are they? Like I wouldn't presume
You
to
might
know.
be exploring that free association.
Like um I might have some interpretation of the free association, but I wouldn't assume that I'm right unless I check with the
Oh, yeah.
client. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's an intelligent approach.